So the Bible hints at the order of these events that are going to lead to it with the four horsemen. The first one is conquest. The beast is going to come in through peace and policy. And what do you see right now? The whole world is chopping at the bit for peace, even when everything is actually war, which is crazy. But everybody's saying peace, peace when there is no peace and policy. So Daniel 8:25 talks about the man of sin, talks about the Antichrist. And through his policy, also, he will cause craft to prosper in his hand, and he shall magnify himself in his heart, and by peace shall destroy many. So you see that peace here is this lie, this hook that is going to be used to destroy people. He shall also stand up against the prince of pieces, the prince of princes, which of course is Jesus, but he shall be broken without hand. Remember when we looked at the statue from Daniel, and it's that rock that's formed without hand that destroys him? That's what that's talking about. So we see this first is conquest. We see it's all about peace. But this peace is destroying people. Right now, some of Trump's top officials are moving into military bases because of people are rising up. People are getting angry because of the things that are happening. And so we see this farce, this eternal, everlasting peace. It's very interesting the wording that they use of this, of course, is only Jesus that would do this, but it's like they're poking at the eye. And I just wonder, you know, I mean, it's how much mockery are people just going to deal with until they wake up? You're just being mocked. So, but we see here, um, this meeting here, and it's interesting, and I don't fully know what to make of it. I understand, this peace, calling it eternal and calling it everlasting peace when it comes to Israel, because that's like the direct kind of poke God in the eye that, you know, um, eternal peace, everlasting peace before Jesus. But the only other mention of everlasting peace and eternal peace is with China, which is kind of interesting. So, but we have here these boast for everlasting or eternal peace. And so that's the first, this the conquest, this desire for peace is going to then push in to war. And we already see that too. It's with all this talk about peace, but there is so much war bubbling. China and Russia are talking about sending weapons to defend against America. Here Russia just tested doomsday nuclear weapons. They're testing was a tsunami, a radioactive tsunami that could hit the United States. We're starting our nuclear testing again for the first time in 33 years. Don't think 33 isn't significant, because it is. Everything they do is in codes. And so we see here the conquest through policy and false peace. And then immediately that next horse is war breaking out. And then the next horse is the dark horse. And this we see, I think we're seeing a lot of the shadows of this right now. We're seeing how the dark horse being egged on by the conquest, these policies that are crippling, and then the war that is further crippling and killing people, and then the dark horse where this is more economic collapse, famines, all these things are going to further push people into the beast system and into either you take the mark or you die. And so we're seeing this continue to really build, and we're seeing shadows of that coming into place, even right now. And so this is really something that we need to be aware of and be praying about because I don't think we're really aware of how much trouble our nation is in right now. But because again, I don't think we understand just how important the SNAP benefits are for everyday life in America. That's 42 million people. And now, I don't know, Trump just said he's not going to pay it all on it, but earlier he agreed that they would pay um reduce, they pay 50%, which this is interesting because they're saying that they would do 50%, but it could take weeks or months for that money to get to the people. And again, we talked about this is a domino. This is a domino that affects the entire economy. And you've got people rushing into food banks. And I don't know that people understand this, but the food banks already at the first of the year had their funding cut severely. On top of that, because of grocery prices and the inflation that has by no means gone down, that's ridiculous. It's just continued to go up. You go to the grocery store and you see that every single week. The food banks have really been hurting because their funding was cut and then everything cost more. And now they're being overrun already by people coming trying to get food. And so this is gonna domino. And then you've got people that like you and I who are having to stretch our budgets every single week because everything's getting more expensive on top of that. And then it looks like with this domino, everything is going to continue to get more expensive because groceries are going to have to go up to cover for the missing revenue. And what we're looking at is a perfect storm that is not by accident. So it's really up to them if they're like, this is the pain and this is the time to do this to crash the economy, or if they're going to pull this back. So we'll just see. But I really, people pray, have compassion because people are really scared. We've got government workers who are continuing to work, but they're not getting paid. And they have no relief in sight. And even though they're being told that they'll get back pay, they haven't gotten back pay and they still have to pay their bills. And so this is a domino effect that is affecting people, and this is real. People are really suffering and they're really getting scared. And so this is all going to the place though. This is what do we expect the end to look like? God told us that the enemy would have complete control and he would crush everything. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing this beast system crushing everything. And they told us you'll own nothing, but you'll be happy. Well, we'll own nothing, but the beast will be happy. So here we're seeing again, many people are losing their jobs right now. AI is a huge cut, and also because of the economy, people are backing up. People are not spending as much money as they had. That's already happening. People are not going to spend as much money on Christmas this year as they had before. All of that feeds the local economy. And so, of course, they're coming out saying, we've got the answer. Elon Musk is all over this. Um, is a nationwide basic income. And he even says it's high income. So they're trying to prep the the mindset here that people are going to be desperate. They're going to want a nationwide basic income to help them meet their needs. And this is a perfect setup for the mark of the beast. Because in order to be part of this economy, you're going to need to play by the economy's rules. You will not be able to buy or sell unless you do that. And so this brings us to the last horseman, which is the pale horse of death and hell. And I do think it's interesting, just that phrase kind of jumped out at me because we see it, we've been seeing it everywhere with Isaiah 28. I just keep seeing the covenant with death and hell. And here, the last beast, the last horseman is the pale horse of death with hell following. And so the only way, out of this, you've got the war, the famine, people are going to die. The only way out of the tribulation is either die to yourself, receive Jesus as your Savior, and the majority will be the majority of those that do that will be martyred, or temporary relief by receiving the mark of the beast. And then you are dying. You're going to hell. And so hell, I just think that's very interesting, that kind of word there. But here you've got death, all these things coming forward. And, we see by the end of the tribulation period, the vast majority of mankind will be destroyed. And if Jesus doesn't come back just when he does, he says there'll be no flesh saved. And, that could be related to the mark because the mark does change people. But that's also going to be, he comes in just in the nick of time to save Israel and to save those that have survived the tribulation without dying yet. So, um, it's interesting to see kind of the progression of those things and all that control that the enemy is working on right now. We see the pictures of it. But there's going to be a great delusion um, associated with the rapture. And I think that's why we're seeing more and more of this UFO stuff. And, used to, it would sound crazy talking about that the rapture might be explained away by a UFO. But now, the news is already prepping you for that. The news is already prepping you for a UFO. You're already hearing about Three-Eye Atlas, and you're already hearing about UFOs and the strange drones and interstellar objects and thousands of underwater objects and UFOs in the oceans. And so it's very interesting. We're hearing these stories, these news, these footage that's being leaked out, and government officials just saying yes, that there are, other life forms, and so they're just coming right out and talking about it, but they're doing it in a way that's low key enough to where it's there in the subconscious for them to pull it forward when they need to. So the final thought here is, we're looking at these contractions. We've looked at these contractions. We're measuring our contraction. We're timing them to see that we're in transition. We are so close to having that baby born. But what is sandwiched between the tribulation? And what is the tribulation sandwich between, I should say? Well, first is the rapture. We see the tribulation this clearly. The rapture comes first. And then after the tribulation, Jesus returns and we return with him to set up his millennial reign, where we rule and we reign by his side, and we get to witness him give Israel all the promises that he gave her throughout scripture. We get to witness that all unfold. And so we really do have so much to look forward to. And so I know it's frustrating living at this time in history where, just like the mom that's pacing because, man, this baby's coming and it hurts. It's very uncomfortable and downright painful. And childbirth is traumatic, okay? It is pain that is trauma pain. But it turns into joy and it turns into something beautiful because it is pain with a purpose. A baby is being born. And so right now we're timing these contractions and they hurt. And this is scary. This is trauma pain. But if you know Jesus, it's pain for a purpose. And so I just pray if you do not know that you know that you know the Jesus of the Bible, know him. Don't let that go to chance. And your salvation is in him and him alone. You don't do anything to help him save you. It's just the finished work of Jesus. So I hope you guys were encouraged and share the gospel this week. Tell somebody what's happening. And God willing, I'll see you next week. God bless you.